A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Muhammad Abdul-Kareem, and this has been something that has been well overdue, and I would like to share this with you. This is a book called Brainwashed, Challenging the Myth of Black Inferiority, and it's by Tom Burrell. This There comes a point in time when you just need to dig inside of a book and seek out the knowledge. It's incumbent upon every Muslim to seek knowledge, beneficial knowledge, if you may. But I'm at a point where my everyday existence, it's inclining, alhamdulillah, but I want more for myself and I want more for others as well. Family, friends, loved ones as well. And I think that we we just have to remain consistent and stay vigilant. So I'm going to continue to go on. I'm going to read into this book. I plan on completing this book, not in this first read, of course. It's going to be divided into sections, inshallah. But I'm going to read this book in its entirety. So let's begin. Feel free to leave any comments, feedback, questions, or any of the above. So, introduction, chapter 1 through chapter, I think 9. No, through chapter 12. So there's 12 chapters to this book. So let's begin. Introduction. You've been misled, you've been had, you've been took. Malcolm X. Rahimullah. We are strong, survivors of the Middle Passage, the whip and the chains. We have survived centuries of terror, humiliation, vilification, and deprivation. We are smart. Even when our literacy was illegal, we learned quickly, invented, discovered, built, taught, and excelled against all odds. We are creative, making a way out of no way, and constantly birthing and rebirthing American art and culture. So then why, after all this time, when calculating the achievement of the American dream, are we still ranked at the bottom of almost every good list and at the top of the bad list? Why, despite our apparent strength, intelligence, and resourcefulness, do we continue to lag behind and languish in so many aspects of American life? The answer is intricately linked to the hundreds of years blacks have lived with white guilt and black shame. It lurks just beneath the surface of the American consciousness, like a cancer that can't be healed because it can't be discussed honestly and openly. 45 years in the advertising industry have given me personal and professional insight into the power of propaganda, positive and negative, and to use of words and images to influence, change, and even transform people's lives. The knowledge and insights I've gained have inspired me to provoke an honest discussion in the hope that the healing process can finally begin. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. It was at the beginning of this New Deal, the second coming of black dependency throughout my community. We Negroes were indoctrinated with the idea that we were unable to take care of ourselves. and that we needed help and handouts from Mr. Charlie in the form of government programs, including public assistance, food stamps, and any other gifts the government bestowed. This unquestioned dependency, what psychologists call learnt helplessness, was, I believe, one of the many reinforcements of a deep seated race based inferiority. The message was clear, consistent, ubiquitous, and loud. It was subtly broadcast by the white mass media and bluntly and repeatedly echoed by its black recipients. A nigga ain't shit. It was, for the most part, an advertising pitch not much different from the ones used to sell beer, laundry detergent, or life insurance. The two main ingredients of this campaign created a toxic blend of white superiority and black inferiority. Sold. In 1971, I and my partner, Emmett McBrain, launched what would become Burrell Advertising, a full service advertising agency specializing in promoting products and services to the then largely ignored African American consumer. Burrell Advertising became an industry leader because of its positive, realistic, and compelling depictions of Black life and culture, particularly in the medium of television. We were keenly aware of the power of culturally relevant language and images to influence perceptions and attitudes toward my clients' products and services. In other words, we created and disseminated positive propaganda. Many years later, while minding my own business, literally, as chairman and chief executive officer of Burrell Communications, I coined the phrase, Black people are not dark skinned white people. It was a concise summation of the basis of my business that Black Americans, because of our heritage and history, have a unique culture that could best be reached through strategies, words, and images subtly or overtly related to those historical and cultural factors. All ad agencies employ creativity, writing, art, photography, and music to capture the public's much divided attention. However, the most important part of what we do is study people. Why they do what they do and why they buy what they buy. Understanding what motivates people is a crucial part of my profession. But being a Black man, I was compelled to understand the way Blacks are viewed in this country and the way many of us unconsciously view ourselves. Connecting the black dots on a larger level early on connecting the black dots on a larger level early on. From slavery and Jim Crow segregation to commercial and social propaganda became my passion. Burrell Communications research of the 70s and 80s showed that African Americans, have distinct psychosocial needs, desires, fears, hopes, and aspirations, all born of a circumstances arising from our experience as chattel slaves in America. We discovered, for example, that black preference for high end status brands was driven by the need to compensate for feelings of low self esteem. Our penchant for a lopsided spending savings ratio grew out of our need for immediate gratification based on a chilling pessimism about an uncertain future. We over indexed spending disproportionate amounts in every product category related to cleanliness, from feminine douche and scented laundry detergent to car deodorizers and household disinfectants, primarily to compensate for being historically stereotyped as dirty. The genesis of all these attitudes can be traced to American slavery. It was in America, in the land of the free, that Africans were chained and branded, both physically and psychologically, as subhuman beasts or of burden. It was here that we were first indoctrinated with the idea that we were, in fact, not human at all, but property. I determined to gain a clear picture of the various ways that our painful history in America manifests itself in present day attitudes and behaviors. Yes, there were intergenerational and historic factors determining African American purchasing patterns, but might there be similar factors influencing our daily lives, our relationships, our institutions? That was a question. In 2004, I sold the company and left the advertising business, but not completely. I found myself consumed by what I had learned and applied from my years of real life African American cultural anthropology. How could I utilize what we knew? That would been branded physically and mentally from the beginning to enable further exploration. How had that branding been perpetuated even after our physical chains were broken with the end of legal slavery? How were our intensely torturous enslavement and indoctrination transformed into the powerful, pernicious, all pervasive, mass media driven brainwashing that still goes on today? As a marketing professional who respects and admires brilliantly conceived and deftly executed propaganda, I eventually recognized that one of the greatest propaganda campaigns of all time was the masterful marketing of the myth of black inferiority to justify slavery with a democracy. Ingenious. I also became fascinated by the timeline of this perverse but brilliant campaign. The brainiac of his day, Thomas Jefferson, pro propagandist extraordinaire, chief strategist, and creative director, along with other powdered wig power brokers, sold the idea of white supremacy to the masses, all the masses. They conspired to make this out and out barbarity America's first big brand. The early American ruling class used every available tool: religion, law, politics, art, literature, even the nascent field of science, as tools of their sales promotion and PR strategy. The goal was to rationalize and reconcile the development of a single society with two outrageously contradictory parts. One built on the concept of human freedom, the other built on a vicious governmentally sanctioned destruction of human freedom, all with the same history making quill pen. Think about it. America had grappled with the moral dilemma of slavery ever since the first African landed in Jamestown in 1619. The founding fathers found themselves at a serious moral crossroad. They desperately needed a way to justify the gaping divide between their God fearing, freedom loving rhetoric and the nation increasing addiction to cheap slave labor. The solution, an effective marketing campaign created to not only force the institution of slavery to fit within the budding democracy, but one aimed at convincing both master and slave that blacks had always been and would forever be mentally, physically, spiritually, and culturally inferior. On the personal level, I'm revolted. Yet, as a marketing man, I find it to be an audacious and ingenuous strategy. It's as though the original colonial elites hired a PR agency to sell the concept that Africans were innately inferior, and it was indeed completely justifiable to treat them as subhuman beasts. The last several centuries still haunt us and hinder our advancement and achievement. It has separated successful blacks from disposable blacks, those who simply refuse to act right and prosper. In our effort to prove our equality, we consciously chased the master's dream, adopted his values, moved into his neighborhoods, went to his schools, and danced to his tune, while in assimilation and survival mode, we had no time to consider the price we'd pay for leaving our communities and leaving behind so many who looked like us. In the 60s and early 70s, we paid lip service to being black and proud, but the sudden conversion was not supported by the necessary psychological machinery to make the change permanent. Even today, we have woefully inadequate countermeasures, no permanent cultural mechanisms to undo what a 400-year marketing campaign has achieved. Our insistence that we have broken free from the negative propaganda is wishful thinking. It takes much more than big afros, clenched fists, and danceable slogans to fight the centuries of unremitting exposure to twisted images and dehumanizing messages. While I was writing this book, something happened that few of us in our wildest dreams even imagined. A black man became president of the United States of America. Some may look at that and say, see, black Americans have overcome. As Dr. King predicted, we as a people have gotten to the promised land. In this day and age, imagery is power. Never before has the country had the image of a black man occupying the highest office in the land, delivering the State of the Union address, drafting and promoting national policy, or disembarking from Air Force One with his black wife and daughters. From a marketing perspective, this is powerful, life altering stuff. Yet, anyone who looks beyond the glow of the moment will understand that neither we nor our situation will change overnight. A few of us have always succeeded somehow, in spite of the failure of our American dream. Barack Obama, through intelligence, will, self-determination, and yes, not a small confluence of favorable circumstances, may have reached his promised land, but most Black Americans are still wandering in the wilderness. The Black inferiority, white superiority campaign has morphed exponentially in the new media age, a vastly different, highly technological phase of instantly communicating messages and images has changed the landscape forever. Now, a click of a mouse, a push of a button, or a finger slide across the screen of a portable media device defines what an opportunity and what's a lost cause, what's stagnant and what's progress, what's valuable and what's worthless. In the so-called post-racial era, international no internalized black inferiority combined with this new media reality means the rules of engagement have changed dramatically. America's racial fatigue, coupled with the election of the nation's first African American president and the illusion of the acceptable exceptions, present new challenges for the best of us and most importantly for the rest of us. The illusion of racial progress paves the way for a nationwide survival of the fittest mentality. It it will be okay to uproot urbanites so suburbanites can reclaim valuable metropolitan areas. Gentrification is still unrelenting. Efforts to diversify the workplace and neighborhoods will become needless distractions. Affirmative action or any other race or class based efforts will become moot issues or of no value. After all, racism and prejudice died with the 2008 election. In a post racial society with new media as its weapon, the brainwashing campaign now enters a phase that threatens to totally destroy our way of being. At a time when the global economy is a touch screen away, when a fractured, dispirited nation is forced to once again dig deep and tap into its innovative roots to save itself, creative, time tested black people can ill afford to sit on the sidelines beseen by a dormant, invisible virus. Now, more than ever, we have to come to terms with this devastating campaign. We've been programmed to deal with serious issues at a topical, epidemic level instead of going into deep tissue to the root cause. President Obama, utilizing a savvy new media campaign to change hearts and win minds and votes, has opened the door for a counter propaganda campaign, one that benefits not just black people, but whites as well. Now we are at a point in history when the opportunity for moving ahead has never been greater. We can seize this moment if only we take charge of our own destiny, our own reprogramming. If we pull our resources, we have the critical mass, the numbers, the voting power, and the persuasive skills to enable us to combat the ills that derive from lingering racism. The same skills that have allowed us to survive, if used less persuasively, passively, and more proactively, can enable us to thrive. I've experienced race-based lack of self-esteem firsthand. I know that it was not based solely on low income or poor education. As upwardly mobile as I was, that sense of lack was right there, climbing every rung of the ladder of success right beside me. Over time, I've learned that the root of the problem wasn't what was being done to me, it was what I've been brainwashed to feel about myself. We cannot cure the symptoms without acknowledging the disease. These pages examine the roots of why, more than 140 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, so many of us still think like slaves. I interviewed and incorporated the thoughts and experiences of many people throughout this book. Although I've changed names and ages of some of these interviewees to protect their identities, their honest input was invaluable in illustrating the modern day impact of black inferiority conditioning. In Brainwashed, we will question why we still think so little of ourselves, why our grandmothers still put their savings in a special offerings plate to help pay for the pastor's new luxury automobile, why our children answer when called ho and nigger, why our one time civil rights, business, and political heroes succumb to crabbing and backstabbing, and why we all too often avoid critical thinking about any of this. This book examines our subconscious perpetuation of the myth of black inferiority by asking these fundamental questions. Why can't we build stronger families? Why do we perpetuate black sexual stereotypes? Why are black and beauty still contradictions? Why do we keep killing each other? Why are we killing ourselves? Why can't we stop shopping? Why do we expect so little of each other and ourselves? Why do we give up our power so willingly? Why can't we stick and stay together? Why is the joke always on us? Even at this unprecedented and powerful point in American history, friends, colleagues, and well wishers still express their frustration with Black America's ever worsening dependency on handouts, corporate sponsorships, and our kids' lack of respect for anything and anyone, especially themselves. They finally convinced me that my advertising base discoveries about the brainwashing of my people and my ideas about how to finally reverse its effects could fill a book. Well, here it is. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.